Hello and welcome back to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We are on chapter 4 and I'm hoping to finish chapter 4 today. So if you remember back from last week, we are in the chapter where they are learning all about who Harry is. So Harry finds out for the first time that he is a wizard. So that is where we left off. We are on page 54. So it was right after Hagrid told Harry that everyone in their world knows his name. So, 54. But why? What happened? Harry asked urgently. The anger faded from Hagrid's face. He looked suddenly anxious. I never expected this, he said in a low, worried voice. I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting you hold of you about how much you didn't know. Ah, Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you, but someone's gotta. You can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing. He threw a dirty look at the Dursleys. Remember, the Dursleys didn't tell Harry what they were supposed to tell him. Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it. He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said, It begins, I suppose, with a person called, but it's incredible you don't know his name. Everyone in our world knows. Who? Well, I don't like saying the name if I can't help it. No one does. Why not? Gumble and Gargoyles. Harry, people are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. See, there was this wizard who went bad. As bad as you can go. Worse than you can go. His name was... Hagrid gulped, but no words came out. Can you write it down? Suggested Harry. Nah, can't spell it. All right, Voldemort. Hagrid shuddered. Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard, about 20 years ago, started looking for followers. Got 'em, too. Some were afraid. Some just wanted a bit of his powers, because he was getting himself power, all right. Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things happened. He was taken over, because some stood up to him, and he killed them. Horribly. One of them, only the safe places left, was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare trying to take the school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mom and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you know who never tried to go get him on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want to do anything with the dark side. Maybe he thought he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted him out of the way. Anyway, all anyone knows is he turned up in the village where you all was living on Halloween 10 years ago. You were just a year old. He came to your house and Hagrid suddenly pulled out a very dirty, spotted handkerchief and blew his nose with a sound like a foghorn. Sorry, he said, but it's all that sad. Knew your mom and dad, and nicer you couldn't find 'em anyway. You know who killed him. And then, and this is the real mystery of the thing, he tried to kill you too. Wanted to make a clean job of it, I suppose. Or maybe he just liked killing by then. But he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead? That's no ordinary cut. That's what you got when the powerful evil curse touches you. You take care of your mom and dad in your house even. But it didn't work on you. And that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he had decided to kill him. No one except you. And he'd kill some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, the Pruitts. And you was only a baby, and you lived. So just a side note, anytime Hagrid talks, I try to do an accent for him. Because the way that it's written, if you see, it's there's not full, half the times they're not real words. So I'm trying to say it the best I can. So just bear with me through his accent that I give him. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he'd ever remembered it before. And he remembered something else. For the first time in his life, a high, cold, cruel laugh. Hagrid was watching him sadly. Took you from ruined house myself, on Dumbledore's orders. Brought you here to this lot. Load of old tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He'd almost forgotten the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have gotten back his courage. He was glaring at Hagrid and his fists were clenched. Now you listen here, boy, he snarled. I accept that there's something strange about you. Probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. As far as all you know about your parents, well, they were weirdos. No denying it. And the world's better off without them, in my opinion. Asked for what they got, getting mixed up with these kinds of wizarding types. Just what I expected. Always knew they'd come to a sticky, sticky end. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat. Pointing this at Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley. I'm warning you. One more word. In danger of being speared on the end of the umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back on the sofa, which by this time sagged down to the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask, hundreds of them. But what happened to you know who? Good question, Harry. Disappeared. Vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery, see? He was getting more and more and more powerful. Why'd he go? Some say he died. Cod swallop, in my opinion. Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there, biding his time like. But I don't believe it. People who was on his side came back to ours. Some of them came out of kind of traces. Don't reckon they could have done it if he was coming back. Most of us reckon he's still out there, somewhere on, but lost his powers, too weak to carry on. Because something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does. But something about you stumped him, all right. Sometimes I make him more like Southern accent than others. I'm not sure why, but anyway, that's okay. Okay, so moving on. Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes. But Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure this had been nothing more than a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He'd spent his life being clouted by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he really was a wizard, why hadn't they turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? If he'd once defeated the great sorcerer of the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, eh? Sorry, guys. This has been a bad recording, but I'm not redoing it. Okay, not a wizard, eh? Never made things happen when you was scared or angry? Harry looked into the fire. Now he came to think about it. Every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, was super upset or angry. Chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach. Dreading going to school with that ridiculous haircut, he managed to grow it back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he gotten his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Hadn't he set a boa constrictor on him? Harry looked at Hagrid, smiling, and saw that Hagrid was positively beaming at him. See, said Hagrid, Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait. You'll be right famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you? He's not going, he hissed. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I've read those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish, spell books and wands, and... If he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and James Potter's son from going to Hogwarts. You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there, and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort for a change, and he'll be under the greatest headmaster Hogwarts has ever had, Albus Dumbledore. I am not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks, yelled Uncle Vernon. And he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air to point at Dudley. There was a flash of violent light, a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and the next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pig's tail poking through a hole in his trousers. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind him. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard. Shouldn't have lost my temper, he said ruefully, but it didn't work anyway. Meant to turn him into a pig, but I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do. He cast a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrows. Be grateful you didn't mention that to anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I'm, not supposed to use magic, strictly speaking. I was allowed to do a bit to follow you and get your letters to you and stuff. Oh, one of the reasons I was so keen on taking the job. Why aren't you supposed to use magic? Asked Harry. Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, but I got expelled, to tell you the truth. In me 3rd year, they snapped me wand in half and everything. But Dumbledore let me stay on as gameskeeper. Great man, Dumbledore. Why were you expelled? It's getting late, and we've got lots to do tomorrow, said Hagrid loudly. Got to get up to town, all your books and that. He took off his thick black coat and threw it to Harry. You can keep under that, he said. Don't mind if it wiggles a bit. I think I got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets. All right, so that's the end of chapter 4. And one of my favorite parts in all the Harry Potter series is when Hagrid turns Dudley into or tries to turn him into a pig and just gives him a little pigtail. So he's got a little pigtail on his butt. So pretty funny. So we'll read tomorrow, chapter 5. We'll read about Diagon Alley. All right, so I'm so happy you followed along. Chapter 4 tomorrow.